The rain had long stopped, leaving the fields soaked and glistening under the tender morning sun. Dew still clung to the blades of rice like 1,000 small promises, trembling with each whisper of the wind. In the heart of this quiet countryside, where the scent of lemongrass mixed with smoke from early cooking fires, a new chapter in James and Diep's intertwined lives was about to unfold. It had been months since James lost everything. The business he once nurtured from scratch had crumbled under the weight of betrayal and bankruptcy. What remained were debts, silence, and shame. But even at his lowest, Diep, steady, kind, and endlessly resilient, had offered him something he never expected: faith. Not pity, not sympathy, but faith. When she placed her modest savings, $5,000, everything she had, into his trembling hands, it wasn't money she was giving. It was belief. A belief that he could rebuild, not just his business, but himself. Weeks later, James returned to her small countryside home, not with wealth or victory, but with a gift that would soon change everything: a golden puppy named Dawn. A humble gesture, but one that carried warmth beyond words, because sometimes, the smallest lives arrive to heal the largest wounds. The morning sky glowed faintly gold over the village roofs as Diep pushed her cart along the narrow dirt path. Her stall, simple yet inviting, sat beside a row of banana trees. Around her, the air smelled of earth and fresh ginger. She knelt to arrange her produce: onions, lemongrass, and a basket of dried chili, each item set with quiet precision. "15 kilos, sure, auntie. Only 105,000 dong, still the best price in town," she said, smiling at her first customer. The old woman chuckled, pressing a folded bill into Diep's hand before wandering off, bag full of spices and gossip. Around her, the market began to hum: the clatter of scales, the rustle of straw bags, the laughter of children weaving through the crowd. For a brief moment, everything felt ordinary, peaceful. Diep wiped the sweat from her brow and glanced toward her small garden beyond the path. The chicken coop she'd built last year leaned crookedly, one side collapsing into the mud. "Need to rebuild that soon," she murmured. Then, a sound broke through the morning clamor. A small, sharp bark. Diep turned, startled. A golden puppy, fur matted and paws dusty, was following a street vendor, tail tucked but eyes soft as honey. Something in her chest tightened. It looked just like Hockey, the dog that used to chase her through the rice fields when she was a child, before vanishing one stormy night. The vendor caught her gaze. "Want him? 5 months old, strong and loyal, eats well." Diep crouched down, brushing her fingers gently through the puppy's silky fur. Its warmth pulsed like a heartbeat. She smiled. "From now on, you'll be called Don," she whispered. The puppy wagged his tail furiously, as though he understood he'd just been found. By dusk, Diep and Don were walking side by side along the red dirt road toward her small home. Each step left twin imprints, one belonging to a woman learning to heal, the other to a creature just beginning his journey. The evening wind carried the scent of roasted corn and bamboo smoke. "Come on, Don," she said softly. "This is home now." As they reached the gate, a familiar figure stood waiting, James. His red coat caught the last slanting rays of sunlight. His expression was tired, but his eyes softened when he saw her. "Don's still shy, huh?" he teased, kneeling to pat the pup. "He'll warm up soon," she replied. Don sniffed his shoes, then licked his hand, tail wagging wildly. Something quiet passed between them, a shared comfort too deep for words. Without speaking, they began moving in sync. James sweeping the yard, Diep scrubbing the wooden table, their motions blending into a quiet domestic rhythm. "Plant that tree near the corner," James said after a while, pointing to a young guava sapling. Diep nodded, her hands sinking into the damp soil. "I'll water the vegetables," he added, carrying a tin pail. Droplets caught the sunlight, glittering like fragments of glass. "The fence looks good," she observed. "No more chickens sneaking in," he grinned. "Guess I'm still good for something." They worked until the sky burned amber. Dawn dozed in the grass, the world softening into peace. Then, as the first stars began to rise, James spoke. "Diep, there's something I need to tell you. My father," he said quietly, staring at the ground. "He kicked me out of the company. I've lost everything. I don't even own the business anymore." The wind swept through the yard, scattering dry leaves. Don lifted his head, as if sensing the heaviness. "I thought you'd get tired of me," James whispered. "Tired of all this failure." Diep knelt beside him, eyes warm and unwavering. "James," she said softly, "I stayed when things were easy. I'll stay when they're hard, too." Tears spilled silently down his face. "You mean that?" she nodded. "Rich or poor, it doesn't change how I feel." Something in him broke, then rebuilt. He took her hands, trembling. "I'll start again," he vowed. "I'll build a new company, no matter how long it takes." She squeezed his hand. "Then we'll build it together." From zero, he blinked, laughing through the tears. "Together, yes," she smiled. "You have the experience." I have $5,000 saved from my stall. It's not much, but it's everything I have. Diep, I can't accept that. You can, she said firmly. It's not charity, it's faith. The word lingered in the air, glowing faintly in the twilight. Faith. Don barked suddenly, running circles around them as if cheering. They burst into laughter, the kind that comes only after tears. Let's not just rebuild for us, Diep said, her voice low but strong. Let's create something that helps others, people who've lost hope, like we once did. James nodded, a quiet fire returning to his eyes. We will, he said. And we'll stay together, no matter what comes. In that moment, as the sun dipped behind the hills, two shadows stretched across the earth, joined, unbroken. The next morning, sunlight poured through the thatched roof, painting ripples of gold across the floor. Don stretched lazily while Diep placed a steaming bowl of rice before him. Eat up, little one. Nearby, James worked on repairing the bamboo fence. The sound of his hammer mixed with birdsong. It's strange, he murmured after a while. Yesterday I felt like my life had ended. Today, it feels like it's just beginning. That's because, she said, crouching to gather fallen twigs, sometimes life waits until everything falls apart before showing us what really matters. He watched her for a moment, the way sunlight lit her hair, how her voice carried quiet conviction. You sound like someone who's lost and rebuilt before. I have, she admitted. When Hockey died, I thought I'd never want another dog. But then Don showed up. Life gives you second chances in the most unexpected ways. James smiled softly. You're braver than you think, Diep, she grinned. And you talk too much for someone who's supposed to be hammering. They laughed, the sound echoing over the fields. Later that afternoon, James asked, can we walk to the market together? I need to get something. The red path stretched before them, framed by green patties shimmering under the sun. Villagers waved as they passed. That's your husband, Diep? An old woman teased. Diep flushed. Not yet, James said with a playful smile. But maybe one day. At the market, they stopped at a carpenter's stall. How much for that doghouse? James asked. 500,000 dong, the man replied. Without hesitation, James nodded. Wrap it up, James, Diep protested. That's too expensive. We can build one. He grinned. It's not for Don. It's for you. For me? She blinked, puzzled. Moments later, the carpenter handed her a small wooden plaque, engraved in neat, careful letters. To Diep, thank you for believing in me. I wanted to thank you, James said quietly. Not just for the money, but for not giving up on me when everyone else did. Tears welled in her eyes. You gave me a dog and a plaque. That's already more than I ever asked for. He shook his head gently. No, Diep. You gave me something priceless, hope. They walked home under a sky streaked in pink and gold. Dawn trotted ahead, tail wagging as if celebrating the bond between them. Back home, James placed the new doghouse by the garden and set the plaque beside it. Now everyone who visits will know, he said softly, that this home was built from kindness. Diep traced the letters with her fingers. James, this is the nicest thing anyone's ever done for me. Then keep it, he said. So whenever you doubt yourself, you'll remember, you helped me stand again. The wind carried the scent of lemongrass and damp soil. Dawn curled beside the plaque, eyes closing peacefully. Days passed in quiet rhythm. They rose early, tended the garden, and began shaping their new business. James sketched plans in a worn notebook. Diep brewed tea, her ideas flowing as naturally as the morning light. We can start small, she said. Ginger products, candies, oils, powder. It's what I know best. James nodded, excitement flickering in his eyes. We'll brand it locally, then online. I'll handle logistics, and I'll handle customers, she added. Evenings found them beneath the tamarind tree, papers spread before them, fireflies blinking in the grass. Sometimes they spoke of strategy, sometimes they simply sat in silence, listening to the crickets. One night, James murmured, I used to think success was about money. Now I see, it's about peace. About people who stay, even when there's nothing left, Diep smiled. Peace isn't found, James. It's built, he turned to her, eyes soft. Then let's keep building it together. Weeks passed. Their small business began to bloom. Villagers came to buy jars of Diep's ginger honey. A traveling merchant offered to connect them to buyers in town. James spent nights writing product descriptions, while Dawn guarded the door faithfully. One afternoon, James returned from a delivery trip carrying a small wrapped box. A gift, he said simply. Inside was a silver keychain shaped like a paw print, engraved with two words, Faith Family. Every time you hold it, James said, remember this house, this garden, and how faith turns strangers into family. Tears shimmered in her eyes. You don't need to thank me anymore, she whispered. Just promise you'll never give up again. I promise, he said. That evening, golden sunlight spilled across the fields. Dawn chased dragonflies between rows of vegetables as James and Diep stood quietly by the gate. The same dirt road they once walked in silence now felt different, alive, renewed. Every footprint was a story, every breath, a beginning. Diep leaned her head on James's shoulder. "You know," she murmured, "I think Dawn found us at the perfect time." James chuckled. "Or maybe we found him," she smiled. "Either way, he's proof that even broken things can lead us home." And as the last light faded, their small house glowed softly against the horizon, a beacon of quiet resilience. Because sometimes, the greatest rebuild doesn't start with money or power. It starts with faith, a friend, and the simple act of believing again.